If they've been acting distant, defensive, or strangely triggered around you, it's not random and it's not coincidence. Your energy is touching the very wounds they've been trying to hide from themselves. Stay with me, because once you understand how your presence is exposing their emotional blocks, you'll never again mistake their reaction as your fault. Your energy is not just a passive force, it is a powerful presence that resonates far beyond what you consciously realize, and when you step into your authenticity, when you embrace your true self without apology, it inevitably begins to illuminate what others have been trying to hide. It starts to uncover the emotional blocks they have built around themselves to protect their vulnerabilities, fears, and insecurities. And you may notice that certain people suddenly behave differently around you, that their words carry a weight of discomfort, that their actions reflect confusion, defensiveness, or even subtle resistance, because energy is not just felt internally, it is perceived externally, and when someone is carrying unresolved trauma or unhealed emotional wounds, your light becomes a mirror reflecting back what they have been unwilling to face. It is as if your presence awakens something dormant, something they have suppressed for years, and this is why your energy can feel almost like a magnet, drawing reactions from people who have been unconsciously avoiding self-reflection, because the universe has a way of aligning situations, experiences, and people to catalyze growth, and in these moments, your mere way of being acts as a gentle but undeniable spotlight on what needs attention. It is not about judgment, it is not about confrontation, it is about natural resonance. Your high-frequency vibration clashes with the low-frequency resistance of unprocessed emotions, and that clash is what creates awareness. It is what exposes the cracks in their emotional armor. You see, when someone has built walls to avoid pain, to avoid vulnerability, your authenticity can feel uncomfortable to them, not because they dislike you, not because they are attacking you, but because your energy bypasses all pretenses, it bypasses all masks, and touches a raw place they have been avoiding. And often people will react by distancing themselves, by projecting anger, irritation, or impatience. They may criticize you, try to diminish your energy, or even attempt to manipulate situations to regain control over their internal discomfort, but this is simply a reflection of their own inner chaos, the chaos that your presence has brought to the surface without you doing anything consciously, and this is where the power of self-awareness comes in. Understanding that when you feel tension in response to someone else's behavior, it is rarely about you personally, it is about the blocks they are unable to face, and the more grounded you remain in your own energy, the more clearly these patterns become visible, and as you maintain your authenticity, as you continue to radiate clarity, compassion, and strength, you start to create a space where their unhealed emotions cannot remain hidden. It is almost like a natural unveiling, like the sunlight slowly creeping through a darkened room, revealing shadows that have lingered for too long, and in this process, you become a mirror for their emotional growth, not intentionally, not forcibly, but simply by being aligned with your own truth, and it is essential to recognize that this can provoke discomfort, it can provoke resistance, it can even provoke fear, because facing emotional blocks is never easy. It requires honesty, courage, and the willingness to confront pain that may have been buried for decades. And some people may not yet be ready for that, which is why they react defensively, which is why they may push back against your energy, and in those moments, the key is to remain centered, to understand that their reactions are a direct reflection of their inner state, not a reflection of your worth or your energy, and the universe works in subtle ways to teach these lessons, sometimes through experiences, sometimes through encounters with people like you, whose presence cannot be ignored, whose energy cannot be diluted, whose authenticity is a catalyst for emotional exposure, and when you accept that this is part of the journey, when you embrace your power without guilt, without apology, without the need to change for others, you begin to understand the profound ripple effect that your energy can have. It is transformative not only for yourself but for those who are ready to witness it. It forces a reckoning, a confrontation with unresolved feelings, and although it can feel uncomfortable for both parties, it is ultimately liberating, because emotional blocks cannot dissolve in darkness. They require light, they require awareness, and your energy, your presence, your unshakable alignment with your truth, becomes the illumination that encourages this dissolution. And even when they resist, even when they argue, even when they retreat, the seed of recognition has been planted, the mirror has been held up, and their emotional landscape has been altered in a way that is irreversible, subtle, but undeniable. And this is why cultivating your energy, protecting your frequency, and remaining true to your authentic self is not only an act of self-preservation but an act of silent guidance for those around you. It is a demonstration of the natural law that energy attracts energy, that vibration exposes vibration, and that alignment reveals misalignment. And so as you continue to operate from a space of clarity, strength, and groundedness, you will notice patterns emerging. You will notice people responding in ways that reveal more about their inner state than about you. You will notice moments where tension rises, conversations become charged, or subtle dynamics shift, and all of these are signs that your energy is fulfilling its role as a mirror, as a gentle force of awakening, as a subtle but powerful tool for exposing what has long been hidden. And this is not manipulation, this is not interference, this is the natural flow of energy interacting, consciousness interacting. And when understood in this way, you can approach it with compassion, with detachment, and with unwavering confidence in your own presence, knowing that what you radiate cannot be taken from you, cannot be diminished. Recognition that it does not seek approval, and yet it has the ability to awaken, expose, and transform on a level that words alone cannot achieve, because energy speaks a language deeper than intellect, deeper than reasoning, deeper than conscious thought. It speaks to the soul, to the subconscious, to the hidden chambers of the psyche, and when wielded with awareness, with compassion, and with integrity, it becomes a force that naturally reveals emotional blocks, prompts healing, and encourages alignment, not through confrontation, not through coercion, but through the undeniable resonance of authenticity. And as you continue on this path, as you refine your energy, as you cultivate inner peace, clarity, and alignment, you begin to notice that these patterns repeat, that certain types of people respond similarly, that the mirror effect intensifies, and that your own growth accelerates in response. Because when energy interacts, when authenticity meets resistance, when light meets shadow, the transformation is mutual, even if it is unconscious, and in embracing this, in understanding the invisible yet powerful dynamics at play, you step fully into your role as someone whose energy is a force of exposure, of awakening, and of subtle but profound emotional revelation. And the key to navigating this is mindfulness, presence, and self-awareness. Because the clearer you are about your own boundaries, your own alignment, and your own purpose, the more effective your energy becomes in gently yet unmistakably exposing emotional blocks around you. And as this unfolds, you begin to see patterns in your interactions, in the shifts of energy, in the reactions of those around you, and you understand that this is not random, that this is not coincidental, that this is the natural law of vibration, of resonance, and of energy mirroring. And when you hold this truth, when you embody it fully, your energy ceases to be something passive, it becomes a conscious instrument of revelation, a tool of awakening, and a catalyst for the emotional clarity that others have been avoiding. And in this realization, you step fully into your power, knowing that your presence, your authenticity, and your energy are forces that illuminate, expose, and transform, and that every interaction, every reaction, and every subtle shift is a reflection of the profound impact that your aligned energy has on the world around you. And as this dynamic continues to unfold, you begin to recognize that the exposure of their emotional blocks is not a one-time event but a progressive unraveling, a slow peeling back of layers that they themselves may not have realized were so tightly wrapped around their heart, because emotional blocks are rarely obvious to the person carrying them. They often feel like personality traits, like preferences, like justified reactions shaped by past experiences. And yet when your energy enters the equation, steady, grounded, and unapologetically authentic, it disrupts the illusion of permanence they have built around those defenses. It challenges the narrative they have repeated to themselves for years, the narrative that says they are fine, that nothing needs to be addressed, that vulnerability is weakness, that control is safety. And suddenly in your presence, those narratives begin to crack, not because you confront them, not because you demand change, but because your energy embodies a different possibility. You represent openness where they have chosen closure. You represent emotional availability where they have chosen distance. You represent calm self-awareness where they have chosen reactive survival. And this contrast alone becomes powerful enough to unsettle what they thought was stable. And often they will not consciously understand why they feel uneasy. They may simply describe it as feeling triggered or off around you. But what they are truly experiencing is the friction between their suppressed emotions and the clarity of your vibration. And friction, while uncomfortable, is also a catalyst for heat, for movement, for transformation. Because when two opposing frequencies interact, something has to shift, something has to either harmonize or separate, and in that tension lies the opportunity for growth. And this is where your awareness becomes essential, because if you misinterpret their reactions as personal rejection, you may be tempted to dim your light, to shrink your presence, to make yourself more digestible. But doing so would only reinforce their avoidance and disconnect you from your own alignment. And the truth is that your role is not to rescue anyone from their emotional blocks, it is not to carry their healing on your shoulders, it is simply to remain rooted in your authenticity, to hold your frequency steady enough that the mirror remains clear. Because when you waver, when you begin to doubt your own energy, the reflection becomes distorted. But when you stay centered, when you continue to embody emotional honesty and inner stability, you create an energetic environment where denial becomes harder to maintain. And at some point, they are faced with a choice, either to confront what has surfaced or to retreat further into their defenses. And both outcomes are part of the natural order, because not everyone is ready to heal at the same pace. Not everyone is prepared to dismantle walls that once kept them safe. And yet even if they choose retreat, even if they distance themselves or project blame. The awareness that was sparked cannot be entirely erased. It lingers in their subconscious, it whispers in quiet moments, it resurfaces in unexpected memories, and slowly, often invisibly, it begins to soften the edges of their resistance, because exposure is the first step toward transformation, and transformation rarely happens in an instant. It unfolds in stages, sometimes messy, sometimes subtle, sometimes disguised as conflict or confusion, and you may observe cycles where they oscillate between openness and withdrawal, between curiosity and defensiveness, because healing is rarely linear. It is a spiral, revisiting the same core wounds from deeper levels of awareness, and your energy acts as a consistent reference point within that spiral, a reminder of what alignment feels like, of what emotional freedom looks like, and as this continues, you may notice something else shifting within yourself. A deeper sense of detachment emerging, not coldness, not indifference, but a grounded understanding that their emotional process is their responsibility, and this detachment allows you to remain compassionate without becoming entangled, to remain supportive without sacrificing your boundaries, and boundaries are crucial in this dynamic, because when emotional blocks are exposed, reactions can intensify, and intensity can pull you into unnecessary conflict if you are not mindful. And so protecting your energy becomes an act of wisdom, not selfishness. It becomes a way of ensuring that your light remains steady rather than flickering in response to their storms, and the more you practice this steadiness, the more you refine your own emotional intelligence, because every interaction becomes a lesson in discernment, teaching you when to engage, when to step back, when to offer understanding, and when to simply observe, and through this process, you begin to see how interconnected growth truly is. How one person's alignment can ripple outward, challenging stagnation, stirring introspection, and inviting change without force. And this is the quiet power of energy. It does not shout, it does not demand, it does not chase validation, it simply exists in its truth, and truth has a way of dissolving illusion over time, and so as you continue to embody your authentic self, you may find that certain connections deepen, because those who are willing to confront their emotional blocks will feel drawn to your steadiness. They will feel safe enough to lower their guard, to speak honestly, to acknowledge fears they once hid, and in these moments, you witness the beauty of transformation, the gradual softening of defenses, the subtle shift from reaction to reflection, from avoidance to accountability, and this is not something you force, it is something you allow, and allowing requires patience. It requires trust in the natural unfolding of growth, and at the same time, you must accept that some connections will fall away, because not every soul is prepared to face what your energy reveals, and their departure is not a failure, it is alignment recalibrating, it is the universe rearranging dynamics to support mutual evolution, and when you understand this, you release the need to cling, the need to convince, the need to over-explain your authenticity, because you recognize that your energy is enough, that your presence alone is transformative, and that those who resonate will rise, and those who resist will eventually drift, and neither outcome diminishes your light. Instead, it clarifies your path, strengthening your confidence in the invisible yet undeniable impact you carry, and as your awareness deepens, you begin to perceive emotional blocks not as flaws but as protective mechanisms born from past pain, and this perspective allows you to approach others with empathy rather than judgment, to understand that beneath every defensive reaction lies a story. A wound, a moment where trust was broken or vulnerability was punished, and while empathy is powerful, it must be balanced with self-respect, because understanding someone's pain does not require you to tolerate harmful behavior, and this balance is part of your growth as well, learning to differentiate between compassion and self-sacrifice, learning to maintain your energy without absorbing what is not yours to carry, and in doing so, you elevate not only yourself but the standard of interactions around you, because when you refuse to engage in emotional chaos, when you decline to mirror defensiveness with defensiveness, you interrupt old cycles, you demonstrate a new pattern of relating, and sometimes that demonstration alone is enough to inspire change, and sometimes it is simply enough to confirm that you are walking a different path, and through it all, the central truth remains that your energy is a mirror, a quiet yet potent force that brings hidden emotions into awareness. And awareness is the gateway to healing, and whether they choose to walk through that gateway is beyond your control, but the act of holding the mirror, of staying aligned, of radiating authenticity, that is within your control, and that is where your true power lies, in the unwavering commitment to your own growth, in the courage to remain visible, in the strength to let your energy speak without dilution, knowing that in doing so, you are participating in a profound exchange of consciousness. One that exposes emotional blocks not to shame or condemn, but to illuminate and ultimately liberate, and as this realization settles within you, you move through the world with a deeper sense of purpose, understanding that your presence carries weight, that your alignment influences more than you can see, and that every reaction, every shift, every moment of discomfort or awakening around you is part of a larger energetic dance, one where your authenticity continues to reveal what has long been hidden. And in that revelation lies the quiet beginning of transformation, and as this journey reaches a deeper level of awareness, you begin to understand that the exposure of their emotional blocks is not just about them, it is also refining you, strengthening you, sharpening your discernment, because every time your energy triggers a reaction, you are given an opportunity to choose how you respond. You are given the space to either shrink into old patterns of over-explaining and self-doubt or to stand firmly in your alignment without hostility, without arrogance, but with quiet certainty, and this is where your evolution becomes undeniable, because in the past you may have internalized their discomfort, you may have questioned your tone, your presence, your truth, wondering if you were too intense, too deep, too emotionally aware, but now you recognize that what feels intense to someone emotionally blocked is simply clarity, what feels overwhelming to someone guarded is simply openness, what feels threatening to someone avoidant is simply emotional availability, and that realization frees you from the burden of self-editing to accommodate unhealed wounds that were never yours to carry. And as you release that burden, your energy becomes even more coherent, even more grounded, even more powerful, not in a loud or dominating way, but in a way that is unmistakably steady, like a mountain that does not move when the wind howls against it, and the more steady you become, the more obvious their inner turbulence appears, because stability highlights instability, peace highlights chaos, emotional maturity highlights avoidance, and again this is not about superiority, it is about contrast, it is about resonance revealing misalignment, and some will rise to meet that contrast, they will begin to ask themselves difficult questions, They will reflect on why they react the way they do around you, why your presence stirs emotions they thought were long buried. And this introspection is the beginning of their breakthrough, because once awareness is activated, it cannot be completely silenced. It may be ignored for a while, it may be resisted, but it lingers, it nudges, it waits patiently for the moment they are ready to look inward instead of outward for blame, and when that moment comes, they may not even consciously connect it back to you, but the seed you unknowingly planted through your authenticity will have played a role, and that is the beauty of energetic influence. It does not demand credit, it does not seek applause, it simply initiates movement beneath the surface, and at the same time there will be those who choose the opposite path, those who double down on their defenses, who convince themselves that your energy is the problem, who label your boundaries as coldness, your self-respect as pride, your emotional clarity as manipulation. Because accepting responsibility would require dismantling the identity they have built around their wounds, and that dismantling can feel like a loss before it feels like freedom, and so they may walk away, they may attempt to discredit you, they may try to provoke you into reacting so they can justify their narrative, but your greatest strength in those moments is restraint. It is the refusal to engage in battles that are rooted in projection, it is the understanding that you do not have to defend your peace to someone committed to misunderstanding it, and this restraint is not weakness, it is mastery, it is the embodiment of someone who knows that their energy speaks louder than any argument ever could, and as you continue to move through life with this awareness, something extraordinary begins to happen. You stop fearing reactions, you stop anticipating conflict, you stop dimming your light in advance. Because you realize that exposure is not aggression, it is illumination, and illumination is neutral, it simply reveals what is already there, and if what is revealed is discomfort, then that discomfort was present long before you arrived, you simply brought it into view, and that perspective changes everything. It shifts you from self-doubt into self-trust, from confusion into clarity, from entanglement into detachment, and detachment here does not mean apathy, it means emotional sovereignty. It means understanding that you can care without carrying, that you can love without losing yourself, that you can empathize without absorbing, and this sovereignty amplifies your impact even further, because now your energy is not only exposing emotional blocks, it is modeling what emotional freedom looks like, it is demonstrating what it means to exist without constant defensiveness, without the need to control every outcome, without the fear of vulnerability. And modeling is one of the most powerful forms of teaching, because it bypasses resistance, it communicates through lived example rather than instruction, and over time the people who are meant to align with you will feel drawn not just to your words but to your steadiness, to the way you navigate tension without escalating it, to the way you maintain boundaries without hostility, to the way you remain authentic without apology, and these aligned connections will feel different, lighter, reciprocal. Because there are fewer emotional walls distorting the exchange, there is less projection clouding communication, and in these spaces you will feel the confirmation that your energy is not too much, not too intense, not too disruptive, it is simply calibrated for depth, for truth, for growth, and growth will always feel uncomfortable to those invested in stagnation, and so the final realization in this journey is acceptance, acceptance that your energy will not be welcomed by everyone, acceptance that some will misunderstand you, acceptance that exposure can look like conflict before it looks like clarity, but also acceptance that you are not here to remain small for the comfort of others. You are here to evolve, to align, to embody your highest frequency, and in doing so you naturally challenge environments that thrive on emotional suppression, and that challenge is not cruelty, it is contrast, it is the silent invitation for others to rise, and whether they accept that invitation is their choice. But your responsibility is simply to remain true to your alignment, to protect your peace, to refine your awareness, and to trust that your energy is operating exactly as it should, revealing what needs to be revealed, shifting what needs to be shifted, and clearing what is no longer compatible with who you are becoming. And when you fully embrace this understanding, you move through the world with a calm confidence that cannot be shaken by projections, because you see them for what they are. Reflections of inner work left undone, and instead of absorbing that unfinished work, you allow it to exist without entangling yourself in it. You allow people to face their own mirrors in their own time, and you continue forward, luminous, grounded, and unapologetically aligned, knowing that your energy is not just exposing emotional blocks, it is accelerating evolution, both yours and theirs, in ways that may not always be visible in the moment but are undeniably transformative over time. And in that awareness you find peace, because you no longer measure your impact by immediate validation, you measure it by alignment, by integrity, by the quiet certainty that simply by being authentically you, you are participating in a powerful energetic exchange that brings hidden emotions to the surface, not to destroy, but to heal, not to shame, but to awaken, and not to control, but to liberate. And that is the true depth of what it means when your energy exposes their emotional blocks. It means you have reached a level of clarity that no longer allows illusion to remain comfortable, and that clarity, held with compassion and strength, is one of the most transformative forces you can carry.